Live from Los Angeles, it's Alone with Rome.
Welcome back. My guest is the president of UFC. This Saturday, Randy Couture takes on Brock Lesnar in UFC 91. I'm joined by Dana White. Dana, good to have you back. How are you?
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having us.
Dana, let's go right to the matchup. You've got Lesnar, who is huge. He's explosive. He's athletic. But is he skilled enough to deal with Couture? And at 2-1, is he ready for this fight?
That's the big question. That's what makes this fight so interesting, or any fight interesting for that matter. Lesnar, like you said, explosive, strong. This guy moves like a 155-pounder. I saw him yesterday and talked to him. He looks phenomenal. This guy actually has to cut weight to make heavyweight, and he's at 270 right now. He's got to make 265. He was at 265 2 weeks ago and stayed there for 4 or 5 days. He's fired up and ready for this fight. Couture, the master at coming up with game plans on how to expose holes in people's games, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can do that to Lesnar.
All right, so he's the master, and strategically he's so sound, but is he equipped to deal with the speed and the power of a much bigger, much younger guy?
It's true, and historically, if you look at Couture's fights, other than Tim Sylvia, who is a monster, he basically slapped Tim Sylvia around with no problem for 5 rounds. But before that, he had trouble with bigger guys. Obviously, Lesnar is 10 times the athlete Tim Sylvia is. So it's going to be a tough fight.
Hey, Dana, one more thought about the matchup. The guys who've had the most success always seem to have that wrestling background, a good wrestling foundation. Both of these guys have it. Who has the edge from that standpoint?
Very true. And one of the interesting things that Randy Couture says is, listen, I was Brock Lesnar, 6-7 years ago. I know what he doesn't know. I know what holes are in his game, and I'm going to expose him, and I'm going to beat him. The thing is with Couture, what I keep saying is, Couture doesn't want to play the takedown game with Lesnar for 5 rounds. Lesnar's too big, too strong, and too good of a wrestler. I think Couture's going to, been looking at tape, what limited tape there is of Lesnar, and find other weaknesses in Lesnar's game and try to work him there until he can get him down and put him on his back, because Lesnar's never spent any time on his back.
All right, now this figures to be a huge night for your business. When you look around, competitors are falling by the wayside. What about the economy? The economy's gone into the tank. What's that done to your buy rates?
No doubt about it. The economy has hurt everybody's business right now. I don't care how big you are or how small you are. The buzz on this fight, I've been traveling all over the country, and there's a good buzz on this fight. It's a fight that people are interested in seeing, and one of the great things about the UFC is you don't ever watch it alone. You get 8 or 9 buddies together, you pitch in for the pay-per-view, beer, pizza, whatever it is, and I think we're going to do really well on this fight.
Speaking of competition, is Mark Cuban a viable competitor? Are you feeling any heat at all from him putting fights on his HD net?
No, not at all. Originally, Cuban got into the business and made a couple of moves on us, but let me tell you what, Jim, this is a really tough business to get into. I'm flattered that we make it look that easy, that anybody could just jump in and do it. It's a really tough business, and I think a lot of guys with a lot of money and a lot of business knowledge have found that out over the last couple of years. And like you said earlier, they're dropping like flies.
Hey, Danny, go back to last year. When you were negotiating with Tito Ortiz, he said on the condition that I do another deal, you and I need to get in the ring. It looked like it was going to happen, and then it didn't. Exactly what happened?
Tito pulled out last minute. He put this whole thing on and wanted to do it. I stepped up and said I would do it, went to the commission and actually got licensed to box him. This was to box. Let's make no mistake.
Sure.
I would never fight Tito in a mixed martial arts competition. We were going to box, and he pulled out last minute.
Dana, what if that had happened? I mean, you used to box, so you can handle yourself. How would you have fared against him boxing?
I don't know. I honestly can't say, how I would have done. I would have tried hard, I can tell you that. But I can tell you there was no upside in it for Tito, If he comes out and knocks me out in 2 minutes, people expect it to happen. If he doesn't, he's in big trouble, and I think that's one of the big reasons he didn't do it.
All right, Kimbo Slice shockingly went down, or maybe not so shocking. Okay, yeah. Maybe not so shockingly, which leads me to the next point, and I think you just answered the question. Has anybody approached you about going into business with him, and what would the response be?
I've said many times about Kimbo Slice. First of all, I was the one out there telling everybody this guy isn't a real fighter. The hype is ridiculous. The fact that a guy like this would get the kind of media attention that he got because he gets 10 million hits on YouTube. Who cares? At the end of the day, you got to focus on the real athletes, the guys that are actually have accomplished real things, that are great competitors and not fighting in people's backyards at barbecues. And I told everybody, if he wants to get into the UFC, he can come on to the reality show, okay? If he wants to try to get in, he can do the reality show. And I'll tell you right now, I highly doubt he even wins it or comes close.
Or probably would even be interested at that point. Hey, Dan, credibility is everything. What was your response when you found out that report that Elite XC had offered extra money to Seth Petruzelli to keep that fight off of the mat?
Made me sick. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I've been battling, Jim. You know, whenever there's money at stake and you know, people think that they can get into the business and it looks easy, that's the kind of stuff I start worrying about. I built this business as I use boxing as the game plan of what not to do when I built this business, and I don't even want to hear stuff like that. It makes me ill.
You know, last thought, you came up through boxing. Kids coming up right now, will they choose MMA over boxing or even other mainstream sports?
Absolutely. You see it now. You know, boxing is dying a horrible death right now. And listen, like you just said, I came up boxing. I don't hate the sport of boxing. I love the sport of boxing. Boxing, the promoters and the fighters and everybody else involved have been killing that sport for years. And the reality is it's going to go away because none of these promoters are willing to put their hand in their pocket and spend money on the future of boxing. They're not going to put their money into it. They're too used to ripping money out of it. They've been doing it for years. We invested in the UFC. We built this thing. And right now, and the great thing about it is it's a martial art. Back in, you know, when you and I were growing up, you'd put your kid in a karate class or a kung fu class. Kids are taking mixed martial arts classes these days. That's what they do for self-defense. They learn more about the sport, and a lot of people are going to end up becoming fighters.
UFC 91, Saturday night. Dana, nice to have you back. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the support.
For more on Saturday's fight, check out MMA Live at ESPN.com or UFC.com. In fact, when we come back, we'll talk some more MMA next on the Forum. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Joining me in the Forum are a columnist for the Orange County Register. That is Mark Wicker, and the host of The Pulse on ESPN Radio. That's Doug Gottlieb. All right, Mark, starting with the UFC and MMA, they're expecting a buy rate of upwards of 1 million or more. That's no joke. You are old school. Do you like MMA?
No. It's great when you got a 2-1 guy. A guy with a 2-1 record in their biggest fight. I really love that. You know, I mean, I heard Dana White say boxing's dying a horrible death. I think De La Hoya Pacquiao sold out in about 2 minutes. You know, and you know, it's amazing that you live in a country where, you know, Randy Couture, who is about 45 years old, I think, is more famous than Tony Margarito, who, if you saw the Margarito-Cotto fight, and I think a lot of people out there did, that was one of the great events. And I think boxing still, I mean, there's a place for MMA. It's a great marketing tool, but I think boxing is still alive.
Okay, well, is there a place for MMA, or is there now a place for boxing, and is MMA it?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, look, there's still a place for the great boxing match. I mean, there's still a place when you have this Pacquiao fight coming up against De La Hoya. On the other hand, what I think you're seeing with MMA is a rebirth of two things. One, of wrestling. I mean, both these guys, you got University of Minnesota against Oklahoma State in a wrestling match, and these guys have added to their game since college. One going WWE and going the shooting star, and, you know, the other one, you know, who's a longtime UFC guy. But I also think that it speaks to our kind of inner knuckle drag on the ground sort of guy, 25 to 50-year-old, want to throw some money down on the most barbarian sport there is, and that's what this is.
Or better yet, 18 to 34, which is just a killer demographic. Right. Thing is, Mark, look, I'm a boxing guy, too. I grew up on boxing. I still love boxing. I'm not going to give up on that. But to their credit, MMA, at least they can put together the best of the best. They can make fights. I mean, that's UFC 91.
Absolutely. But, you know, boxing's is making some pretty good fights, too. I mean, Oscar is not even giving you the pretension that this is his last one. I mean, he's just going to keep going, and he still carries the sport.
You know what has a little sense of? A little Law and Order. You know, whereas Law and Order is not a great storyline, but in an hour, you get the whole thing. In this, you don't, you know, you got a 2-1 fighter against a long legend. I get the story. I want to see the fight. I'm going to see some blood. I'm going to see some pins. Maybe I'll see a tap out, and I'm good. I move on down the road. I don't think about it for months to come like I will the Pacquiao fight.
It's that short at Oklahoma State attention span.
You know, yeah, but it's a different kind of 2-1. I mean, we're talking about 2-1. Who gets a title shot at 2-1? Who gets a shot at the best of the best at 2-1? But it's a different sort of 2-1. I mean, at 3-1, the guy's an enormous star already.
Well, the one was pretty. It was a first rounder, I believe, wasn't it? With Mir.
He was doing really well, and he got caught. I mean, that's how that sport goes.
Well, that's the problem with this sport, is that we buy into guys. We buy it. You know, those of us who don't know it, we buy into Kimbo Slice, and then boom, 14 seconds in, he's tapped out. He's out of the sport.
Well, what's this world come to that I'm defending MMA and taking on the Forum panel?
I don't know what's happened to you.